This is the Layers section of VDMX5's Workspace Inspector. If you have to add, delete, or group layers, or if you want to inspect a layer so you can modify its properties or view its interface in another window, this is the area of the application that you want to be using. First of all, this is a list of all the layers that currently exist in your project. This list is ordered according to the rendering order. So here we have layer 1. If there were other layers below it, layer 1 would appear on top of the other layers below it. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. This is a list of layers, so if we click something in this list, it's going to inspect it. This is the canvas main output, so let's inspect that. Now the canvas is basically your workspace. It's your working area. Other layers are composited inside of the canvas, and then the resulting canvas image is taken and it's displayed either in a window like it is over here, or it's going to be displayed full screen on a monitor, a projector, or something like that. Right now the canvas is inspected, so we have two sub-inspectors. First we have the canvas main output controls, and this determines the resolution of the canvas. We can modify this. Right now it's 640 by 480. Let's make it 80 by 60. You see it got considerably more blocky. And we can adjust the frame rate, which is the speed at which all of the layers inside the canvas are composited together. So we can chop that down to 10 FPS, and it got a lot more jerky. Let's put everything back where it was before, 640 by 480. And this is the effects chain. This is where you can apply effects to the composited canvas image before it's displayed on your output device. Those of you who have used previous versions of VDMX should take note of this. You used to have to make a group. You have to group all your top level layers if you wanted to apply effects to it or preview it. Now that's just sort of built into the engine. You don't need to worry about that anymore. Here we have a list of all the various effects that exist, and you can add them to the effects chain as you see fit. If you use the Asset Manager, you can customize the list and the order of all those effects. Yeah, there's city lights. That looks pretty. Let's get rid of that for now. You'll also notice that these inspectors are resizable, and they also have this little icon right here. This icon right here means that you can click on it, and the inspector will be torn off, and it will appear in its own window. You might want to do this for anything you want to use frequently enough that you don't want to have to switch back to it. For example, if I find myself using effects in the canvas output frequently, I don't want to have to keep switching back to it from other sections of the application, so I just want to pop it off into its own window. So we click that button, and you can drop it into a window. You can do that for this too, and you'll notice that these appears to be tab windows. So you can take tabs and you can drag them into the same window so multiple things can share the same window, or you can tear them off into their own window. If you click the X button over here, it doesn't actually delete the canvas or it doesn't delete the layer. What it does is it just closes the window and it can be opened again from the inspector. That's just the canvas main output. Beneath the canvas, you'll see that we also have a layer called layer 1. The layer 1 is just a layer that was created by default, and I triggered this lovely spinning cube composition on it. So let's inspect layer 1, and you'll see three sub-inspectors that opened up. First of all, this inspector should look somewhat familiar. This is the effects chain inspector, and the only difference is that now it's inspecting the effects chain for layer 1 instead of the canvas. So any effects we apply here will be applied to layer 1 and only layer 1. Above that we have the source inspector. This displays the source controls for whatever's currently playing back on this layer. So right now we see that it has this slider protocol input pace, and if we click and drag on it, the cubes spin at different speeds. Now they're nice and slow, and we can speed them up a bit. You can also change the resolution again, or you can change the frame rate of this layer. So each layer's resolution can be fine-tuned in most circumstances, and the frame rate can be adjusted. And all the layers are rendering independently of one another. So this is actually a very useful control to have. And then down here we have the composition controls. This is the inspector that you would use to modify the composition mode of a layer. Right now it's just a GL add. You can adjust the layer opacity, and you can adjust various position and sizing modes that all affect how this layer appears within the canvas or appears within its parent group. If you want to make a new layer, you would click this plus button up here, and another layer got created. And we can then inspect that layer. So let's click on it down here. And now we're inspecting layer 2. Layer 2 doesn't really have anything on it yet. So let's use one of the built-in sources. Let's use the built-in checkerboard source. And while layer 2 is beneath layer 1, you'll notice that we can see layer 2 in the main output. That's because layer 1 is using the OpenGL add composition mode. So layer 1 is being composited using the addition comp mode with everything below it. And that's where we can see stuff below it. If we want to change that, let's select OpenGL over. And now layer 1 is successfully obscuring layer 2. And if we drag the opacity down, we can see that layer 2 still exists. It's just hidden because layer 1 is being composited on top of it. I mentioned earlier that the order of the layers in the layer section, it actually corresponds to the order in which they are rendered. So right now, we can't see layer 2 because layer 1 is on top of it. But if I take layer 2 and I rearrange it in the list of layers, now layer 2 is showing up on top of layer 1. And we have the same sort of problem we did before because layer 2 is using the OpenGL add comp mode, so we can change that to over. And now layer 2 is obscuring layer 1. It's important to note that every layer has alpha channels. Alpha channels are inherently built into VDMX. It's just part of the engine. They're always there. You just can't see them if you're not using them. In this particular case, layer 2 is a checkerboard comp mode, and we can use some of the parameters in that source to make the layer beneath it visible. So in this case, the checkerboard is comprised of black and white squares. Here we have the interface for the checkerboard, and we have black and white color options. So we can take the black and we can reduce the opacity, which lets us see through the black squares to the layer beneath it. Or we can take the white and do the same thing, which lets us see through the white squares.